mas que eles não poderiam admitir a verdade, a população ia entrar em colapso.
Nada temos a esconder.
The North American Air Defense Command, better known as NORAD, was created in 1958. Its main purpose was to detect and defend against Soviet bombers and missile launches. Over time, its role expanded, and it began tracking activity across the skies of the entire world. In the early hours of January 13, 1996, NORAD contacted Brazilian air defense officials with an urgent report. An object had entered Earth's atmosphere roughly 200 miles northeast of São Paulo. When Brazilian authorities asked what kind of object it was, NORAD replied that it could not be identified. Minutes later, the object came down near the town of Varginha. The Brazilian Army and Air Force rushed to secure the crash site before civilians arrived, but they failed to get there in time. The craft had already been seen, and whatever was inside it was no longer present. In the days that followed, a chain of events unfolded that would permanently affect the people of the area, at least the ones who lived through it.
Aqui. Aqui. Aqui, ó.
Here.
Aqui, aqui, ó.
Here.
Aqui, ó. Aqui, foi aqui, ó. Aqui, ó. Uau. Foi aqui, ó. Ó. Foi aqui, aqui, ó. Se eles morreram.
Varginha sits in the southern part of the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais. With a population of around 135,000, it is one of the larger cities in the region. The local economy depends heavily on farming. One of those farms belonged to Eureka and Orolina de Freitas. Just before sunrise, Orolina was startled by the sound of cows running wildly across the property. When she looked outside, she saw a cigar-shaped object hovering above the pasture. She woke her husband, Eureka, and they watched together. They later said the object reminded them of a submarine and was roughly the size of a school minibus. White smoke poured out of the object, and it appeared unstable in the air. For nearly an hour, they watched as it struggled to move before finally disappearing behind a nearby ridge. On the opposite side of that ridge, Carlos de Souza was driving toward the airport when he heard a low, unusual rumbling noise. At first, he believed something was wrong with his truck and pulled over. Moments later, he realized the sound was coming from the sky. A cigar-shaped craft hovered about 300 feet above the ground and was slowly dropping lower. The object had several window-like openings along its side and what looked like a long lee running down its middle. Thick white smoke was pouring from that lie. Carlos found this odd, since smoke from engines or fires is usually dark. The rumbling sound came and went, as if the craft was failing. Carlos jumped back into his truck and followed it. The object flew over a small mountain range, suddenly dipped downward, and vanished from sight. A few minutes later, Carlos spotted a dirt road leading toward where it had gone down. When he reached the top of a hill, he saw debris scattered across a large area. He ran toward the crash site, which was several hundred feet from the road. At first glance, he assumed it was a small aircraft. As a licensed pilot, his first instinct was to help. But within seconds, he knew this was nothing like a plane. The air was filled with a strong smell of ammonia and sulfur, similar to rotten eggs. Before he could get far, he heard the sound of approaching engines. Military trucks sped into the area and began setting up a secure zone. Armed soldiers shouted at him to back away. Carlos tried to explain himself, but the moment ended quickly. A rifle was pointed directly at his face from just inches away. He raised his hands and stepped back, shaking. He left the area and stopped for coffee, trying to calm himself. A short time later, two men approached him. Carlos described them as tall and well-dressed, both wearing dark suits. They told him they knew who he was, where he lived, and details about his family. They ordered him to forget everything he had seen and never talk about it. Carlos was terrified and agreed. The men got into a black car without license plates and drove off. For the next 26 years, Carlos kept silent. Back at the crash site, Brazilian military forces worked non-stop to collect the debris. The size of the craft suggested it could have carried multiple occupants, so orders were given to search for survivors. Survivors did exist, but they were not found near the wreckage. They were already inside the city. Only hours after the crash, local authorities began receiving strange reports. Around 8 a.m., a college student claimed he saw a creature crouched in an alley near a park. He described its skin as dark brown and oily. It had small hands with 3 long fingers. The creature stood between 4 and 5 feet tall and wore no clothes. Nearby, 3 young women named Lillian, Valkyria, and Katia were heading toward the same park. They cut through an empty lot. There, hidden in tall grass near a concrete block wall, they saw a creature. It stood about 4 feet tall and had an oversized head. 3 raised bumps, or ridges, ran along the top of its head. Its eyes were large and red. Its skin looked brown and slick. Its body was thin and weak-looking. It had no hair and no clothing. The girls didn't know what they were seeing. When they moved closer, the creature looked directly at them. They froze, unable to move or speak. Although it made no sound, they felt as if it was communicating with them. They sensed fear, pain, and a need for help. The girls ran in panic. They rushed into Katia's home and told her mother they had seen a demon. When they returned to the lot, the creature had vanished. However, Katia's mother noticed something strange on the ground. A footprint. It wasn't human. It had 3 long toes. The girls later worked with an artist to recreate what they had seen. That drawing would become widely known. Later that day, military police officers Eric Lopez and Marco Shiraz were patrolling nearby streets. Without warning, a small humanoid figure with dark skin ran across the road. Marco got out of the vehicle and managed to grab it. They restrained the creature and rushed it to a hospital. According to reports, it died shortly after arrival. Soon after, Marco began to feel sick. He said his skin felt greasy, even though it looked normal. The ammonia smell stayed with him. Over the next 2 weeks, his health declined. He was admitted to the hospital and placed in intensive care. Doctors were unable to identify the cause of his illness or find a treatment. At just 23 years old, Marco Shiraz died from an unknown cause. No autopsy was performed. A closed casket funeral was ordered, and his burial took place immediately. Officials said it was done to protect public safety. Blood test results were released. 8% of his blood contained toxic substances that could not be identified. That marked the first death linked to the Varginha UFO incident. It would not be the last. Multiple emergency calls came into the fire department, reporting a strange animal roaming near the park where the girls had seen the creature. 4 firefighters were sent out to investigate. When they arrived, they found 5 civilians standing nearby, watching as the creature moved down a steep slope toward a thick wooded area. Witnesses told them the creature made a buzzing noise, similar to a swarm of bees. It took the firefighters nearly 2 hours to capture it. Around that time, a military truck arrived from ASA, a base located just a few miles away. People watching the scene saw soldiers handling two black bags. One of the bags was moving, clearly alive, while the other stayed completely still. Both bags were thrown into the truck, which then drove off at high speed. Military vehicles quickly surrounded the area, blocking civilians from entering or leaving. Less than an hour later, part of the regional hospital was placed on lockdown. Soon after, 10 military and police vehicles showed up. The same truck pulled up near the entrance, and two soldiers unloaded a black body bag. It was rushed inside and taken straight to the radiology department for X-rays. The X-ray technician working that day later said the room was packed with doctors, police officers, and military personnel. Everyone was tense and silent, too uneasy to speak. The technician was instructed to X-ray the bag without opening it. After the images were taken, the military immediately took the film. The hospital's radiologists never saw the results. The technician said nothing like that had ever happened to him before or since. He was warned to stay silent and told the matter involved national security. Just as fast as they had arrived, the military group left the hospital with the body bag and the X-rays. For 25 years, the story stayed frozen. Then, a witness finally came forward and revealed details no one expected. After decades of silence, a soldier who had been close to the operation stepped forward. His account appears in the documentary Moment of Contact, directed by James Fox. The soldier refused to have his identity revealed and became known publicly as Military X. However, an old local news report from Virginia listed his real name. To avoid exposing him, we'll call him Raoul, which closely matches his actual first name. Raoul was part of the convoy that transported the creature to the hospital. While there, he saw the alien inside a box. It was covered, but he estimated it stood between 4 and 5 feet tall. He noticed one foot sticking out. The skin was dark red or brown and appeared oily. He knew it wasn't human because the foot had only 3 toes. After leaving the hospital, the convoy traveled to the ASA military base, roughly 20 miles outside Virginia. Once the trucks were parked, Raoul and another soldier were summoned to the base commander's office. Their commanding officer asked them to explain what they had seen. Raoul was shaken and unsure how to respond. He said it looked like a burned man or something similar. His officer corrected him and said, "That's not what you saw. You saw something supernatural." Raoul was warned that if he spoke to anyone about the incident, the punishment would be severe. The next day at the base felt unusual. Navy trucks and helicopters were present, which was not normal. The base was crowded with unfamiliar personnel, and tension was high. Early that morning, Raoul and the convoy left ASA and drove to a SpaceX Army base in Campinas, about 2 hours away. Raoul never learned what ultimately happened to the creature, though rumors circulated. Later, those rumors would turn out to be accurate. At the time, José Manuel Fernandez was working as an air traffic controller at the base. He recalled 2 helicopters leaving the base, flying to Virginia, and returning with something unknown. He believed it was some type of recovery mission. Then something occurred that José had never seen before. A large aircraft approached the base without landing clearance. His supervisors instructed him to allow it to land anyway. The plane touched down. Boxes were loaded onto it, and it departed shortly after. That was the end of it. The helicopters, trucks, and extra personnel all vanished. When José asked what the operation was about, he was told it was classified and that he didn't need to know more. José did remember the aircraft itself. He identified it as a USOF plane, which is how many Brazilians refer to USOP or USAF aircraft, the United States Air Force. According to military witnesses, the United States quickly took control of the entire situation. While the American aircraft came and left in a short time, several Americans remained behind. Months later, Katya's mother, Donna Luisa, heard a knock at her door. When she opened it, 4 men forced their way inside. She described them as foreign, well-dressed in dark suits, and aggressive. One carried a clipboard. Another held a briefcase. They said they were there to make an offer. Inside the briefcase was a large amount of cash, tens of thousands of dollars. In exchange, they wanted her to convince the girls to withdraw their story and say they had invented everything. After that, they were expected to leave the country and never talk about the incident again. Donna Luisa refused. The men pressured her to accept the money and stay quiet. She told them the girls had truly seen something and that she would not allow them to be labeled liars again. The men grew frustrated, and Donna Luisa began to feel threatened. She warned them to leave, or she would call the police. Suddenly, they walked out. The Virginia UFO incident is often called the Brazilian Roswell. Many people say it's the strongest UFO and alien case ever recorded. But is that really true? The case became known worldwide in 1996, and with the release of the documentary Moment of Contact, interest in it has returned. Still, the big question remains: how much of this story actually holds up? This is a very hard case to confirm or dismiss. There is no physical evidence that proves anything unusual took place. Everything relies on witness accounts, and those accounts have changed over time. Some documentaries claim the witnesses had no reason to lie because they never made money from their stories. That claim doesn't hold up. Several witnesses were paid over the years. The Wall Street Journal reported that the girls who said they found the creature refused interviews unless they were paid at least $200, a claim they later denied. When it comes to the girls, there's something important to note. Before their story became public, there was no Virginia UFO incident at all. Only after they appeared on a popular television show did other witnesses begin to speak out. And those later witnesses described the creature in the exact same way the girls did. That leaves 2 possibilities. Either they all saw the same thing, or the later witnesses shaped their stories based on what they had already heard. There's no way to know for sure. What is clear is that when the girls first reported what they saw, they never called it an alien. They didn't mention a UFO either. At the time, they said it looked like a demon. During that same period, people in the area were heavily focused on a creature known as the chupacabra, which was getting widespread attention. It was a local UFO investigator who later suggested that what the girls saw was an alien. The official explanation says the girls actually saw a man known locally as Mudino. The name means little mute. His real name is Luis Antonio de Paula. He was a man with physical and mental disabilities who often spent long periods crouched on the ground, closely examining small objects. He lived exactly where the girls said they saw the creature. Not nearby, at the exact location. He still lives there today. On the day of the sighting, a severe storm moved through the area. Heavy rain caused flooding in parts of the town. It's possible that Mudino was covered in mud, something locals said happened often, and that his appearance frightened the girls. The girls later said it couldn't have been Mudino because they knew him well and wouldn't confuse him with anything else. But in their earliest report, they said they didn't know him at all. They also said the creature looked like a demon, which matches how they later described the alien. Either they are mistaken, or one version of their story is wrong. That isn't surprising given how old the case is. It's now more than 26 years old, and the witness accounts are inconsistent. This was a massive news story in 1996 and spread around the world. Memory changes over time. If someone hears a new detail repeated often enough, that detail can slowly become part of their own memory. After telling the story repeatedly, the brain can fill in gaps with things that never happened. For now, the Brazilian government and military deny all of it. And if Brazil is working alongside the United States to hide the truth, then they appear to be following a familiar playbook. This video shows a fast-moving, cigar-shaped UFO filmed over Virginia Beach on January 31st, 2021. The footage was uploaded on February 9th, 2021, and quickly gained attention online, reaching thousands of views and spreading across multiple platforms. At normal speed, the object appears as a brief flash moving across the sky. When the footage is slowed down, the shape becomes clearer and easier to observe. The object travels at extreme speed and does not appear to follow any normal flight pattern. It shows no visible wings, no exhaust trail, and no features that match known aircraft, drones, or military technology. Its movement looks controlled but unusual, unlike planes or helicopters seen in the area. Despite the video going viral and being widely discussed, no official explanation has been given by authorities. This lack of response has only increased public interest, leaving viewers questioning what was truly captured in the skies over Virginia Beach. So, what are your thoughts on these mysteries? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.